Have you ever paused to wonder why we so often cast the ego in the role of an inner adversary? A part of ourselves we feel compelled to battle, even though, on the surface, it doesn't resemble a genuine enemy? In truth, this perceived conflict conceals a far richer narrative. The ego was once a vital evolutionary instrument, one that granted our ancestors the very capacities needed to thrive. Today, I'd like to share with you how this remarkable faculty first arose, why it has long since fulfilled its original purpose, and how we might now relate to it from a place of greater freedom and clarity. Let's explore this together with honest reflection, gentle insight, and no unnecessary jargon. Imagine a time long ago, tens of thousands of years, when human beings lived in what could be called a golden age of seamless unity with nature. In that era, our perceptions were guided by instinct and the heart's quiet knowing. We responded to the rustle of wind, to the song of birds, and to one another's unspoken needs with an intuitive grace. There was no separation between self and environment, no inner critic dissecting every impulse. Then, almost miraculously, thought itself began to awaken within us. Ideas formed like constellations in a dark sky, and suddenly we heard an inner voice steering our every decision. At first, this gift felt nothing short of magical. To be able to think ahead, to plan, to name things and remember stories across generations, that was the spark that set humanity on its path. Over time, however, this silent dialogue in our minds crystallized into a distinct sense of I. It became the foundation of identity. I am, I want, I fear, I remember. With each assertion of I am this or I am that, we honed the ego's power to shape our individual and collective destinies. In those formative centuries, the ego served brilliantly. It enabled us to fashion tools of wood and stone, to build communal shelters, to track the seasons and cultivate the land. It helped us form languages, pass down wisdom, and create cultures rich in art, ceremony, and shared vision. Without the ego's organizing force, there would be no architectures of civilization, no libraries of knowledge, no works of music or poetry. Yet all tools carry the potential to be misused, and the ego proved no exception. As its influence grew, so too did the tendency to cling to roles and labels. I am the hunter, I am the healer, I am powerful, I am vulnerable. Gradually, those labels hardened into barriers, dividing us from one another and from our own deeper natures. Walls of separation emerged, between tribes, between genders, between classes. With every us versus them, we moved further from the original innocence in which self and world moved as one. In modern life, this dynamic persists in subtler yet pervasive ways. We identify with our jobs, our accomplishments, our bodies, our beliefs. We become attached to the praise of others, to the comfort of routine, even to our fears, because these thought patterns feel familiar, as if they define us. But in truth, they limit us. They trap us in cycles of comparison, anxiety, and regret, keeping us locked in the compounds of our own making. And yet, and here lies the great turning point, we are not condemned to wage perpetual war against this very faculty that once protected and empowered us. Instead of battling the ego, we can shift our relationship with it. We can acknowledge that its primary mission, to help us survive, to foster community, to pass on knowledge, has been accomplished. We no longer need to let it run the show. The moment we awaken to the fact that our truest identity is not bound up in thought forms or social personas but resides in the spacious field of pure awareness, the grip of egoic narratives begins to loosen. We begin to recognize the patterns at play, those knee-jerk reactions to perceived threats or slights, and we can choose to respond from a place of calm presence rather than reactivity. This doesn't mean abandoning thought or creativity. On the contrary, we can honor every gift the ego has given us. Our capacity for language, reason, empathy, and imagination, while practicing a new kind of mastery. We learn to hold thoughts lightly as instruments in service of our deeper being, rather than letting them seize control. In this way, the ego becomes once again a tool, no longer a tyrant. Think of the ancient parable of the prodigal son. Leaving home, squandering his inheritance, and finding himself destitute, he finally remembers his true origins and journeys back to where he belongs. In much the same way, we have fully explored the playground of the ego, indulged its desires, performed its dramas, learned its lessons. And now, from the vantage point of lived experience, we sense an inner beckoning. Come back. On my own path, I spent years identifying with achievements, roles, and external accolades. Only when I saw that these were not the essence of who I am did a new chapter open. I discovered a quiet, unshakable presence beneath every thought, a boundless space of stillness and compassion. This gentle clarity reshaped my relationships, my work, and my sense of purpose. It granted me a resilience I had never known. If you feel called to explore this for yourself, start with simple practices. Notice when judgments arise, those instant self-critiques or comparisons with others. Acknowledge them without judgment. Then turn your attention inward to the quiet space that witnesses those thoughts. You might try pausing for a few breaths before responding in conversation, or setting aside 5 minutes each morning to simply sit in stillness. As you do this, I invite you to share what unfolds. Leave a comment below with your insights, challenges, or small victories. Together, we form a community of practitioners, supporting each other in remembering our deeper nature. Thank you for reading and for being willing to question long-held habits of mind. If this reflection resonated, consider subscribing for future explorations and click the like button to show your support. Until next time, may you walk with presence, act with clarity, and rest in the freedom that lies beyond the constructs of the ego.